The guitar can have the same note in a lot of different places, the same pitch. We're going to talk about how to approach that because you get a different tone when you go to different diameter strings. That A that you were just vibrating on the first string has a certain sound. It's a small diameter string, and you're going to, be able to do your vibrato a certain way because you're on the first string. That same note would always be 5 frets higher over on the second string. That interval is a perfect fourth. All of your strings are tuned a fourth apart except for the second and third strings. They're tuned a major third apart. That's 4 half steps. So we're going to take just this A note and just work on getting a great tone, but you're going to listen to the timbre of the note. There I have it on the first string. Now if I play that same note over on the second string, it's thicker. Well, it should be. It's in the middle of the neck, larger diameter string. You need to know how to play the same note in different places because that will be a point of reference when you play other blues lines. Now I want to stress something. When you do vibrato on any string other than the first, I'm a big fan of going down to the ground, not pushing it up, because I've seen this happen so many times. Now I can do it both ways, but my preference in most cases, unless I'm going to do a really wide over-the-top vibrato, my preference is to go down to the ground for a couple of reasons. The string will actually pull itself and pull your hand back, and you have less tendency to stay sharp. Now that's one of the biggest problems that people have. They'll go play a lick and they go like, do you hear how it's out of tune? Because I'm not bringing it back to the A440 right there every time. So that means you're inclining that finger just like I talked about before, but here you were pushing the string. This way you're pulling it. Now I'm going to talk about different hand positions. This is one hand position where you're coming in diagonally. You could also, you'll see guys doing this nowadays, where they take their thumb off the back of the neck and they play it like that. I'm not a big fan of that because if I don't need to take my hand off the neck, it's more efficient. You might also keep your thumb on the back of the neck and kind of do like that. That puts you in more of a fusion classical hand position. So know your options. If you were to go up, you run into a problem with more string noise because when you're doing a vibrato down to the ground, the soft palm side of your fingers is hitting the adjacent string. But if you go this way, you hear all that noise because I'm crashing into it over here. Well, right hand dampening takes care of that, but you can't always use right hand dampening. So all I'm saying here is listen to your sound, practice your vibrato both ways, but make sure that you are thinking about keeping things clean, in tune, and a good speed and width for your vibrato. And on this point of the width of the vibrato, you want just a subtle or really wide. Now there you run into a problem on the second string. If you're going to do a really wide vibrato, if you want something really radical, then you've got to go up to the ceiling because you don't have enough room. You'll fall off the neck or have some problems crashing into the first string. Again, it's the sound you're after. So put some thought into this, as I've said before. If you're doing vibrato with your second finger, reinforce it with your first, but you can also practice using the dampening bar. And here we have it with these other hand positions. Now, there's another kind of vibrato. I haven't really talked about it yet. Your classical vibrato. Remember when I talked about playing in tune, you had these different axes that you had to deal with. You either along the string axis or the fret axis. The vibrato we're talking about is a bend and release, so you're working along the fret axis. Classical guitar vibrato works along the string axis. It's that little gentle tug of war back and forth from the bridge to the fret. You're pulling the string, you release it. It's not as effective because the width of the vibrato isn't as great. Now Steve Vai combines both that with along the fret axis. He's doing both axes. So it's kind of like he's smearing a little circle. Again, a different sound. So explore these sounds on your vibrato. If you're on your third finger, reinforce it with your second and your third fingers. So you can put your first finger into play. That depends where you are and what you're doing. You can have the dampening bar in place. If you're going up, make sure you're letting the string come back. I think you'll see what I mean if you practice going both ways. You'll notice how there's more of a tendency to not want to return back to the actual natural note. Fourth finger, we say we're not going to deal with it much, but it would look like that. So what I want you to do now is just take that A note and play it well. By that I mean great tone, good intonation. Now the same note is also going to be available 4 frets higher over on the third string. So then you start looking at things in this long diagonal line, the unisons, the same notes. The tone gets real thick up here. You might want to switch to neck pickup, bridge, whatever, get a different sound. Add 5 more frets, you have that same A over here. So you want to make sure you can just play that one note really well. Then you're going to build on top of that. Now in the next segment, I'm going to take that vibrated notes. You have the A, and we're going to stick some other notes before it. Get some lines and show you how to develop an idea where you always end on a strong tone.